election. You say this is what happens. This is a very valid point that Professor makes. This is what happens when elites won't listen to opposing views. I must say I'll have something to say about that later on in the program to prove that point. But you make the point, James Allan, if you act like political thugs and censors, voters lose confidence in you and your supposed expertise. Just come back to Hunter Biden and the laptop. What would have happened if this had been one of Donald Trump's children?
He'd be in jail right now. We all know it. We all know it. He'd be in jail. It would have certainly been public before the last election. Because remember, and Miranda Devine, who, from Australia, who now works for the New York Post, they had this information before the election. In the second debate, President Trump talked about it. There were something like 23 former intelligence officers, so senior people who all signed a letter saying this is Russian disinformation. They were lying. They knew that it was an actual, they must have known that the laptop was real. They kept it quiet before the election. Still nothing has happened. But if you imagine that a Republican candidate had a child who was in the same situation, it would certainly have been all over the press, and the intelligence agencies would not have come to the defense of the person contesting the election.
Absolutely.
And so you lose confidence that it's a level playing field.
Absolutely.
It's the same way that we criticize the ABC here for being unbalanced, and they just don't even care. And neither does the Conservative Party. The Liberal Party gives them more money before the election. I don't understand what they're doing.
No, agreed. I mean, you make the point the US press acts, you say, like the palace guard for the Democrats, and yet Biden can't read a teleprompter. He reads aloud instructions like repeat the line. It's written down there, but he thinks that's part of the script, repeat the line. Where do you think we are heading in relation to this?
Well, I don't think we're as bifurcated, as split down the middle as the Americans. I could be wrong. I mean, I feel that there's more trust in public institutions here. I mean, one of the things that shocked me during the pandemic was how sheeplike Australians were. I hate to say this, but it was very jarring and disappointing. The level of compliance with idiotic rules that everyone could see were idiotic, and turning in your neighbors for going for a walk. I mean, these are people who just lost all sense of perspective. And so in that sense, I don't think Australians have lost that we haven't developed the same distrust in government as the Americans, but it's certainly not healthy. We're moving towards the Americans. I mean, I still see people driving around in cars by themselves with a mask on. I don't know what theory of virology they're operating under, but if you're in a car by yourself, you don't need a mask. You don't need a mask anyway, but these people are crazy. And so I think it's going to take years to recover from the propaganda onslaught that we got over the pandemic.
Good to talk
I'd like to see an accountability. I'd like to vote them all out.
Yeah, I agree.
Every politician.
Well, the further difficulty, of course, which you've alluded to, is the kind of freedoms that we used to have, just the freedom to have a different point of view. That's quashed as well. So we have it called cancel culture. You're cancelled if you dare to agree with the quote-unquote experts, and yet it's now been proven the experts weren't experts at all. James Allan, always good to talk to you. Thank you for your time tonight. That's Professor James Allan, who's the Garrick Professor of Law at the University of Queensland.